Welcome to Wii Vault, a series on this channel where I take a look back at old Wii games, evaluating their gameplay, their story, and the arts. This week's guest, Bakugan Battle Brawlers. Released in 2009 to the Wii, obviously, the DS, the PS2, the PS3, and the Xbox 360. Developed by Now Productions and published by Activision. Bakugan itself was a popular kids' toy released in 2006 by Sega Toys and Spin Master. A show was quickly made to tie in and help sell the toys, being released in Japan in 2007 and a year later in English. And then this video game was made to tie into the TV show. Now let's see if that was a good idea, if this game holds up today, and if it should come back. So the story to this game starts off by being introduced to the player-created character who's new to Bakugan and is taken under Dan's wing. When a new Bakugan, whose attribute you can choose, just falls from the sky. His name's Leonidas, and he seems to be a little bit more angry and have a bit more of a temper compared to other Bakugan. The story only progresses in these in-game tournaments, which I'll elaborate on further in the gameplay section of this video. But through the tournaments is where we meet the other battle brawlers, who don't really seem to trust Leonidas to start, and then by association you, because Leonidas just seems to give off bad vibes. And this distrust is grown even further when it's revealed that Leonidas is from the Doom Dimension, essentially a graveyard, a hell dimension for all Bakugan. While playing through these tournaments, you hear rumors about a new, evil, and dirty Bakugan brawler who's a Darkest user. And then after beating one of these tournaments, Marduk reveals himself as this evil battle brawler, using his Bakugan named Vladitor, who many years ago was banished to the Doom Dimension by other Bakugan for being too power-hungry and wanting to rule over all. Marduk then challenges the player to a battle, which the player then wins, and Marduk flees. And then after the next tournament, Masquerade appears, obviously working with Marduk and Vladitor, challenges the player to another battle. Obviously the player wins, and Masquerade flees. Then the next tournament is the final story tournament in the game, where you fight all the battle brawlers, Masquerade, and Marduk, beating them all and winning the tournament. Vladitor is then humiliated by Marduk for losing the tournament, so Vladitor takes the Silent Core and evolves himself into an even more powerful Bakugan and brings the Doom Dimension into the tournament space. This causes all the other Bakugan to become extremely weak, unable to battle, except for one, Leonidas, since he's from the Doom Dimension. So Leonidas takes the remaining power of all the Battle Brawlers Bakugan and evolves himself. You and Marduk have a 1v1, only using evolved Vladitor and evolved Leonidas in one epic battle, where obviously the player character wins. This fight actually ends up causing both Vladitor and Leonidas to kind of fade away, but not before each Bakugan gives a heartfelt speech to their player. Vladitor is kind of coming out of nowhere. He's only been shown to just be pure evil up to this point, and at the last moment they're like, actually, he has a heart. Very random. The player then goes over to extend an olive branch to Marduk, and Marduk, the player, and all the battle brawlers leave the arena. And then the player goes to the park, the same park he met Leonidas when he fell out of the sky. And Leonidas falls out of the sky again, saying that Vladitor gave him a bit of his remaining power so that he could return to this world and be with the player character, causing a real cute moment where the player gets to take Leonidas one more time and throw him once more into nowhere. It has this cute little throw as the send-off to the game, but he's not in a battle. He's not doing anything. He's just taking Leonidas and throwing him as soon as he got him back. But that ends the game. The storyline for the game. Now, the story for this game is very simple and very basic, where, friendship wins. The player's friendship with Leonidas makes Leonidas decide to be good, without showing any internal struggle between Leonidas, between giving in to his more natural primal instincts and being from the Doom Dimension, being a little more evil, and deciding to be good because of his friendship. Doesn't show any of that, and that struggle is more just implied than anything else. The conflict between the player and the other battle brawlers is also resolved incredibly quickly, almost as quickly as it's introduced. They don't trust you because Leonidas gives off bad vibes, and then when they find out he's from the Doom Dimension, that distrust is strengthened even further. But then once you beat Masquerade, it's not even acknowledged, they just like you all of a sudden. And then after fighting Marduk, Vladitor, who had shown no signs of any type of goodness, any type of humanity, is just a nice guy to Marduk, and then gives his remaining power to Leonidas in this act of kindness that really is just out of nowhere and out of character, it feels like just out of nowhere. They're like, oh, sympathetic villain. He's actually not that bad, just out of nowhere. So for the basic friendship above all storyline with quick resolutions and out of nowhere depth to the villains, and honestly having some reliance on pre-existing knowledge of Bakugan, I'm going to give this story to this game a 3 out of 10. Obligatory, it's on the Wii, so it can only be so good. But now for the real review of it, the graphics in this game truly look like it's just the cartoon, which was the point, and I think works very well. All characters look just like their counterparts in the show, not just the actual people, but the Bakugan as well. It does feel just like the show. Nothing groundbreaking visually, but just very consistent art direction in this game. And of course, the Bakugan themselves in this game do look really good. The monsters in this game have great designs with decent enough variation between them to give, each Bakugan a unique feel to them. Now, every Bakugan in this game can be any of the 6 attributes, except for the Battle Brawlers Bakugan. So it does look like there's more Bakugan in this game than there actually are, but the monster designs still look really good in this game. Also, the music in this game is actually really good. It's made me take note and decide to start reviewing and talking about the music in this game when I do these reviews. I mean, some really good hype up music that definitely made me ready to Bakugan battle, as long as there's some chill music that really complements some of the more relaxed scenes and environments in this game. Each arena having a kind of theme to it that really does amplify the tone and mood that arena is trying to give off. Not to mention the show's theme song is in this game. And this show's theme song is one of, if not my favorite theme songs of any show ever. It's so good. Really pumps you up. I remember loving it as a kid. So, for music that complements the game well, art design that makes this look just like the show, and really good monster design, I'm giving the arts for this game an 8 out of 10. The whole gameplay in this game is just Bakugan battles. So do they do them well? For the Bakugan battles, you have 3 Bakugan, 3 gate cards, and 3 ability cards. Bakugan can be one of 6 attributes: Heios, Darkus, Pyrus, Aquas, Ventus, and Subterra. Subterra being the only one that doesn't end in an S. And each Bakugan has a GP number on it. This is essentially the Bakugan's power level. Gate cards are what the Bakugan land on. And when there's 2 Bakugan on a gate card, that's what initiates an actual battle between the 2. Once these gate cards are activated, they can affect and increase the GP of the Bakugan on them. Ability cards are cards that are played after the gate card that can also affect a Bakugan's GP. You can play 3 at any time. You can play 3 in any battle. Some strategy on how many you want to play, if you should play any, and which ones to play, of course. But then after the ability cards are used, a mini game starts that allows each player to get more GP for their Bakugan, and once the mini game is ended, the Bakugan with the most GP wins, and they win the gate card. First player to win 3 of these gate cards wins the whole match. Now back to those mini games, there's 3 different mini game types, each with 3 levels to them: the shaking battle, a timing battle, and a shooting battle. Shaking battle level 1 is just shaking the Wii remote like crazy. Shaking battle level 2 is shaking the Wii remote when it tells you to shake and stopping when it tells you to stop. And shaking battle level 3 is listening to the instructions on the screen, whether you're shaking it in a circle, side to side, or up and down. Shaking battle was definitely the most difficult one. Shaking battle was definitely the most difficult one, with some response issues with the Wii remote. Like I would be doing it perfectly side to side, and it's like doing it wrong, and it's like, no, I'm not doing it wrong. I know how to move a Wii remote side to side. And sometimes the stopping, like I swear to God, I'm stopping immediately, and they're still just wrong. Very annoying. But the timing battle level 1 is just having to time an A button. Timing battle level 2 is adding in a B button, going back and forth, A and B, getting them right. And timing battle level 3 is adding in a shake to the Wii Remote. A, B, 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 A, shake, things like that. It was definitely a very simple one with like a Dance Dance Revolution type of screen on it. And shooting battles were just shooting your Bakugan's attribute symbol. Shooting 1 is just doing that. Level 2, they add a gold token that if you hit, you get all the points for all the symbols on the screen. And then level 3 just increases the speed in which all the symbols move. And that was it. That's it for all the different mini games. My favorite probably being timing battle. It was very simple, very fun. Shooting battle being a close second. That one felt the most competitive of the two because you can kind of affect each other with the golden tokens, and if you share an attribute, you're both going for the same tokens. And the worst one was definitely shaking battle. And I'm gonna blame the Wii Remote on that one. But along with mini games and gate cards, the arenas themselves can also affect the match. The tournaments have there's where the cards are and areas all kind of around it that allow you to get different bonuses and boost from little different tokens around the board. There'll be GP boost, but that if you roll into, you increase a little more GP to your Bakugan before it even lands on a card. There would be battle items around the stage that would affect the mini games with different pauses, GP boosters in the mini games, decrease stoppers for the opponent, and also little cards you could find that would give you a landing effect. Once you landed your Bakugan, you could have a barrier to protect yourself. A damage field that would lower the GP of any Bakugan that came in it. And also, it could also affect the throw of your opponent. You would have a mirror, which would invert the controls, so your opponent would have to do the opposite of what they want when trying to control their Bakugan when rolling onto the card. Or confusion, which would distort the whole map and make it harder for them to tell where they are and where their Bakugan needs to go. And then arenas themselves would have an associated Bakugan attribute with it, which in the mini games, if a Bakugan had the same attribute as the arena, they would get extra GP in the mini game. And if they were the opposite attribute, if the Bakugan was the opposite attribute of the arena, they would get less. For example, if it was a Pyrus arena, Pyrus Bakugan would get extra points in the mini game, and Aqua's Bakugan would get decrease, lesser points in the mini games. So you had to be careful about what team you were using, what team you were putting together for the arena that you were going into. Also, when in a Bakugan battle, if one Bakugan is landed on a card and open, another Bakugan can hit that Bakugan on the card, land on the card, and they would battle. But the Bakugan that was hit would have a GP decrease from something called a sphere attack, when one Bakugan just hits the other. Now, there's 3 different actual Bakugan battle types in this game. 1v1s, tag teams, which is just 2v2, and then a battle royale, which is a 1v1, v1v1, 4 players all on their own against each other. And there's actually not too much difference between these. It's just whichever team or person gets first of 3 gate cards. So if you're doing a 1v1 or the battle royale, first player, either way, first to 3 gate cards, they win. And then for the tag team, whichever team wins first to 3 gate cards as well. You don't have to win 3 each or anything like that. Just first 3 for the team wins the battle. And then in the game, there's a store, obviously, where you can buy Bakugan, buy cards, and buy upgrades for your Bakugan to make them better to move around the map or increase their base GP, anything like that. And the store is run by Alice herself. And then there's also your room in the game that's where you save your progress, which is very important. No autosave in this game. It's that old school kind of game. You have to save it yourself. And that's also where you can edit your deck. Change out your Bakugan, change out your cards, have a better team or a better plan going into your next match, to give you advantage in those Bakugan battles. Now, the Bakugan battles themselves can happen in 2 different places: the park and tournaments. In the park, that's where you kind of practice and you can kind of grind and farm for more money. You can play in different arenas and pick different players to play, different difficulty settings to give you a little bit of more practice. And you would unlock the different players in tournaments to play in the park by beating them in the tournaments. Now, the tournaments were mostly 1v1s. You could play anywhere from 3 to I think 7 was the highest tournament of just different opponents as you progress up the tournament and win. And once you win the tournament, you get a huge cash prize pretty much, and you progress the story of the game. That's where all the cutscenes are in the tournaments. So yeah, everything in this game revolves around the tournaments. That's what you're training for, that's what you're building your team for, and that's how you progress the game and the story and are able to unlock more features in the game is by winning those tournaments. And after beating the final tournament of this game is where you have your final match against Marduk, the villain of the game. It's a 1v1. He only can use Vladitor, you can only use Leonidas, and it's a little different because you only have one Bakugan each, but you still have to win 3 gate cards. You each take turns playing a gate card and battling on it. Simple as that. First to 3 wins. Now, once you beat the game, there actually is some post-game content. They do have more tournaments that you could participate in, and you can unlock different Bakugan to buy in the store. This post-game is where you can kind of unlock being able to buy all the different Battle Brawlers Bakugan, Drago, Tigrera, Skyrus, Scorm, even Masquerade and Marduk's Bakugan you can unlock to be able to buy. So obviously it's not as much as the actual in-game and the storyline, but it is still fun to play if you enjoy doing the Bakugan battles. Now, I felt the gameplay in this game was actually really fun and rewarding. There actually is some strategy to playing Bakugan in this game, like which Bakugan you have on your team, the different attribute layouts. Like there's advantages to having one Bakugan of a different attribute, having 3 Bakugan, none of them are the same attribute on your team, and advantages to having all 3 the same, which is really cool. You can plan out which gate cards you're going to use, and also the order in which you play them could matter, and the ability cards, when to use them. It does reward you for exploring different play styles, exploring different attributes of Bakugan, and building your deck. Building an adequate deck that you can win with. This game does a good job of replicating how to play Bakugan, the actual physical toy game in this game. Now, for actual movement around the stage, it was a bit of a risk. If you didn't land on a card, you would lose everything you collected, so you kind of had to play it safe sometimes. Sometimes you needed to take a risk on moving around because you only have so much energy. If you run out of energy, you stop moving and you're stuck. And if you don't land on a card by then, you lost everything, and you lose your turn. And sometimes I would have some frustration with the controls and it being responsive enough, but for the most part, it was a good addition to the game. It added a really good layer to it of moving around the stage, understanding the layout of the map, and knowing which ways to go, and upgrading your Bakugan, because there's different movement stats that you could upgrade that would help you move around the stage. So it definitely added a really good layer to the game that I think did work for the most part. And the minigames, they added a good little skill level that you need for the game, being good at the different minigames, adding to it. Like I said, timing and shooting worked very well, and those were very fun, but the shaking battles, it was either too simple or not responsive enough, so it's just on the 2 extremes of not being fun. But overall, for great and fun gameplay, a real need for strategy and exploring different avenues of how to play the game, fun arena movement, and decent minigames, I'd give the gameplay for this game an 8 out of 10. Something I also like to do in this series is take a look at the voice cast of this game, and this game has all the show voice actors reprising their role in it. The player and Masquerade are actually both voiced by the same guy, Leon Smith, who also played Ramiro in Beyblade. Dan and Leonidas are also both voiced by the same guy, Scott McCord, who played Owen and Trent in Total Drama Island, a beloved show from my childhood. Bruno and Comba are also both voiced by the same actor. Julie Lemieux, or Rupert in the show Rupert. Marucho is Joe Vinicola, also Biggs in The Adventure of Chuck and Friends. Julie is played by Katie Griffin, or Ruby from Max and Ruby. I don't know if most of you guys know what that show is, but that show, that was a deep cut when I realized that this was the same voice actor. Shun is played by Zachary Bennett, the dad from Ranger Rob. Alice is Emily Barlow, or Courtney from Total Drama Island. We're not done with that show quite yet, because Marduk and Julio are voiced by Dan Petronijevic. I know I'm not saying that right, but he also voices Jeff from Total Drama Island. Vladitor and Hal G are voiced by Ron Pardo, or Mayor Humdinger from Paw Patrol.
We are the Bakugan Battle Brawlers! Bakugan, one goal, 2 worlds!
Bakugan Battle Brawlers is a game meant to tie into the TV show and the physical toy game all at the same time. It portrays Bakugan battles in a fun and clever way, with graphics that make it feel just like the TV show, music that really complements the different scenes that they're used in, music that properly matches and emphasizes the different tones of the scenes that they're used in, but being held back a little bit by a real lackluster and predictable story. I'm giving Bakugan Battle Brawlers a 7 out of 10. The main thing is Bakugan battles, which this game excels at, being really fun and engaging. Now, should this game come back? Yes. Kind of. I might get a little bit of pushback for this, but I think it should come back as a mobile game. I know. People hate mobile games, but so many people buy and play them. But I think it could work probably really well in like a Pokemon Go setting where you can kind of go out, collect different cards, gate cards, ability cards, get different Bakugan, battle your friends on the go, battle different NPCs that you can find in the world. I think it would work really well in that type of game. Now here's a look at the next game in this series. Now, tell me in the comments below what you thought of this video, what you agreed with most, what you disagreed with most, what game I should do next in this series. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, keep gaming.